Greetings. It's me, Rebecca, coming to you from off camera today. I was really hot. It's a hot day in the end of August and here in Southern California, and I'm dressed appropriate for the heat, not so appropriate for video camera. So I thought I would do a little tarot video for you today. I recalled an experience today which reminded me of this deck. This is the Wildwood Tarot. I don't know if you saw my Facebook, but I was wondering what deck to use for the month of September coming up, and an article came up on this figure here on this hillside. This is the Five of Bows, by the way, and in the Wildwood Tarot. But this figure here on the hillside, it's actually drawn there in salt, I believe. And there was an article someone shared on my feed that spoke of they were just every decade or whatever, so they have to go and weed it and redo the salt, which will tend to wash down the hill, etc., in the rain. And I thought, oh my, it reminded me so much that figure is here in my deck. So that answered my question, what deck to use today. So I went back to starting on September 1st, I'm going to go back to this deck. But also it reminded me, if you have a chance to look on Bird and the Crone on Facebook, the article is posted there. I think this is in Dorset. I'm not sure if that's the right location or not in England, but I think I don't know why I'm thinking of Dorset. But anyway, you can see if you go look up Bird and the Crone on Facebook, you can have a link to this article. It's kind of interesting. Anyway, it reminded me getting this deck out again. That we had done court cards not too long ago, about a month ago. I did a video addressing the court cards, looking at a different method of perhaps reading the court cards. And I had promised that we would gonna look at some other decks and see if it helps us in some of our more difficult decks. Some of you have expressed to me before in the past that this deck, the court cards are a little difficult, and they can be, yes, because the court cards, even though there's some beautiful graphics in the deck itself, which are pretty in line with the card. Here's the Moon on Water. It's a nice graphic. It's a nice graphic to read. The court cards are all represented by animals in this deck, and some people have a difficulty with animals. So I thought it'd be interesting. Let's take this theory of reading the court cards that we addressed last and see how it translates to this deck. Okay, so first of all, I have the pages out. We're going to start with air. We have the airy pages. The airy pages, the page of arrows. If you recall, if you have not seen that other video, I suggest you might stop this one and go back and look. It's just the last about a month ago. It's the last tarot video that I put up. Reading, and a simple way to read the court cards, or something like that it's called. Anyway, we're looking at the pages, and here we talk about pages of arrows, and in this deck it's, instead of wands we have, instead of swords we have arrows, instead of wands we have bows, instead of cups we have vessels, instead of pentacles we have stones. Okay, pretty much the same thing. But we have the pages being the airy side. And here we have the airy side of air, the airy side of fire, the airy side of water, and the airy side of earth, using that system that we spoke about last time. Let's see how that translates, okay? We talk about the pages of arrows to begin with, and that is the wren. It's a little bird, which is very, that's a good symbol for air. It's a little bird. The Druids, this deck is very much based on Druidry, and the wren was a very important little bird to the Druids. They considered it a prophet of sorts. And that's not hard to see, because we see these little tiny birds. Here we have in this illustration, the bird is perched up inside a tree up high on a branch, so it can see a lot what's going on. When we talk about the airy side of air, perhaps we might say that in order for that bird to catch whatever it is, maybe it sees a little worm down below or whatever, that bird has to leave the air and come down to the earth, right, to catch whatever it is. It must ground itself pretty much, come toward the earth, not necessarily on the ground, but pretty close to the ground. It depends on the bird. But a wren, yes, will come down and land on the ground, walk around on the ground before it catches the worm or whatever it would see down there. So we can understand that example very well, and that we would say in the page of arrows, we don't want to be too airy. We must be grounded in our thought. Remember, the pages are only just ideas, thinking about something that you want to do. Thinking about having a thought, having an arrow. Arrows have as a thought, having a thought. Thinking about having a thought. Thinking about something you might want to do. Thinking about maybe having a feelings, or thinking about your feelings, or thinking about emotions. And then actually thinking about what your goals might be. Okay, so we're still in the thinking stage with the pages. But we have to get in order for this little bird to come down and realize a goal, must ground herself. Let's ground herself. She must come down out of the air. As long as she stays up in the air, up in her tree, she's not going to get much what she wants. Okay, so that's pretty easy to follow. Then we get the stoat in the bows, the page of bows, which would be the airy side of fire. The stoat, what do we know about the stoat? Well, we've said this before. The stoat has great ability to adapt to its environment. They actually change color. Here we see it with the red and the white and the black. I think in the wintertime it turns completely white. I'm not sure about the tail. I think it's related to the ermine, which is that fur that is white with black spots on it. It's the same kind of an animal. So they adapt to their environment usually with their fur. So their ability to adapt is really, really a good one. So if we see the airy side of fire, we can see someone who can put some thought behind that action, whatever that action is. Okay, it's not just a wild action, unrelated action. There is some motivation to that, something behind it. They have strong mystical links to the land. They can live underground, so they have a great ability to adapt, and that's a really cool thing. So getting the ideas, having that the airy side of the fire, the passion, the airy side gives you a little bit of an edge, right? It gives you a little bit of an edge. Putting some intellect behind the passion, some know-how, some thought, giving it some thought, giving some, which is a really important thing to have. Okay, the page of vessels we see is the otter. The otter is at home very much on land and water. We can see that here in the illustration. The water, remember, represents the other world in the Celtic world. Dreaming, we would think of dreaming being a visionary. The otter is supposed to be. Sense of fair play, equal earth and water. If I have putting some intuition, putting some know-how, some kind of feeling into whatever that thought is. Okay, whatever the thought is, whatever that emotion is, putting some some thought into the emotion. Not all emotion. It's not just a knee-jerk reaction, or it's not just the jumping off of passion, but there is actually some thought in it, some thought behind it. Okay, some kind of a plan behind it. Okay. Using its ability, that whole concept of using the knowledge or the ability or the the gifts that the animal has. Okay. And finally, we have the lynx, the page of stones representing by the lynx. The lynx we know is really good. This is put in the airy side of Earth, and well, the lynx is a very good hunter. It can get up in the tree. It's very fast. It's a good protector, but it's a cat. Okay, do I need to say more? Isn't it a cat? A lynx is a cat, a kind of cat. There's the danger always of maybe some kind of wildness. It's a wild cat, and so maybe not a lot of forethought. Sometimes it could be said that the cat might lack the forethought. Maybe it didn't put a lot of, they react rather than act, not using thought. I mean, using thought, but not using too much. If there's not enough thought put into it, it can hamper the progress. I'm having trouble. I have to admit, I'm having a little trouble. It's so much easier to talk to you when I'm looking face to face with you, even though I'm not looking at your face, I'm looking at the camera. So please forgive me if I'm stumbling a bit over my words. Okay. But when we see this, we see the animals, the traits of the animals. What we're trying to see is, looking in this case for this deck, traits of the animals that might be useful in remembering. We can generally say, for instance, the page of arrows is the airy side of air. And we sort of know from the last video what that means, which could suffice it. But let's be a little more, we want to be a little more attentive to the intent of the author of the deck. Why did the author use a wren to illustrate the page of arrows? What was behind that? What motivated that action? So that's why I want to say, let's look at the animals and see if that will give us a little more understanding, a little more depth of knowledge into the card. Okay. Knowing what the bird is up in the tree, always watching. You don't always see the bird, but the bird is up there, and it's not until the bird comes down to the ground to catch a bug or whatever, and soars through the air maybe, and just chirps or whatever, those little birds, then we even notice them. We really don't notice the little ones. We notice the big ones, but not necessarily the small ones. Okay, the page of bows, again, sometimes the ability for the animal to be noticed or not, in this time of the year when there's the ground, it's a reddish color, but when in the winter, it will turn to white and hide itself. So the ability to adapt to the surroundings, putting some, it's like a planning, it's almost like that ability to adapt can help it move forward with any kind of passion or things. Okay. The vessels, again, the land and water kind of a thing, being grounded, but being caught up in the emotion of it too. Understanding both worlds and how they relate, this world and another world. A great visionary, understanding the emotions, understanding maybe intuition, a cooperation between the two. I mean, we see that in the otter, land and water reflection of the dynamics of land and water. And then again in the stones, the lynx, page of stones. Yes, it seems on the one hand that it might have mastery over a situation, but it's just a page. It doesn't have mastery. Sometimes that sense of wildness keeps it from the mastery. Sometimes that sense of wildness makes it maybe not think its way through, and maybe get caught up. Okay, so that's how we see those four. All right, let's move on. And we come up next with the knights. We have the knight of arrows. We have the knight of bows. We have the knight of vessels. And the knight of swords. Okay? The knight is an action, some kind of an action, correct? We're not going to just... and there's some kind of an action or some kind of a move. There's some kind of movement taking place here. Well, when we look at the first one, hawk. This is one of my favorites. as a chicken farmer, we don't like the hawks. The hawks are predatory animals, but I know a lot of people do, and we do have to respect the hawk. It represents power. It represents vision. A hawk lives and nests very high in the ground, high above the ground, and they're able to see very clearly. Oh, they can just zoom in. It's amazing to watch a hawk as it will zoom in on its prey from very high, very swiftly, getting right to the heart of the matter. But what do we know about knights? What do we know about, think back to the Rider-Waite and the knight carrying the sword and rushing forward. We always say, my favorite expression, guard against running with scissors. Well, sometimes the hawk does that. That's where it is vulnerable. Even though it is very fast and very swift, it is so intent on the prey, on that little small prey that it's trying to get, it does not always see. Maybe it does not always see the farmer standing there with a shovel ready, as it swoops in, ready to, dissuade him from taking away a chick. So there's maybe that danger of being impetuous, maybe acting too impetuously, not enough thought, maybe not really enough thought put into it. Okay, the passion. It is the fiery part of air, that fiery part of air. Okay, too swift, sometimes too swift. The Knight of Bows, the fox. What do we know about the fox? Well, we know about fox hunts. I've been always sort of intrigued by a fox hunt. I think they're cruel, terribly cruel. I understand that I'm not always to be killed. The fox is not really to be killed, the sport of it. I know when I was in high school, we used to have regular fox hunts that the band used to join. There was a local racetrack, and they used to have a private club near where I lived, and for the wealthy, and they used to have a race every year, and they had a fox hunt. They also had a fox hunt, and that was part of the club, I guess. And so that's when I first really learned about it. And I understand that they consider it a great sport. They think there's a lot of people now. This is it's true or not. I don't know if it's true or not, but they say that the fox is so sly and so clever that the fox does all kinds of things to avoid being detected by the hounds. It will run over leaves or whatever, places where the scent will not, to confuse the hounds with the scent. It'll run places where the hound then loses scent of it, because that's how the hounds find them, through scent. And they say that it does all those things purposefully while passing up maybe places to go down, holes to hide in, and things that, so maybe it is caught up in the play of it. That could be true. I'm not sure if it's true or not. Well, that's generally what we think about a fox, that a fox has, they're bold, they're adventurous, and they're curious. They don't always consider what's ahead. Sometimes it's so exciting to them that they may lead you somewhere different, and there might be a personal cost. They might be caught up in it, and that's the idea of this fiery side of fire. Too much fire, too much playfulness, too much risk-taking, too much passion involved in just the idea of passion for passion's sake. Action, for action's sake, creativity. I just like the passion. I like the excitement of starting things new and doing things new and going from one thing to another. That's the danger when you have too much fire. And that's one thing we have to risk against with a fox. Too much of a good thing. I found the Knight of Vessels very interesting here because it's the eel, and I really don't think much of an eel. I don't know why. I kind of think it's creepy. An eel wriggling through the water. We're looking here at the fiery side of water. What would the fiery side of water entail? And I found it very interesting that the doing something that you're very emotionally caught up in, that's the fiery side of water, is the thing. And what we do know about the eel is led by his vision, led by a vision. And in this drawing, I think I've mentioned this eye of this, I don't know if you can see it. Can I move that closer? Can you see that? I can't see what you say, so I don't know if you can see that or not, because I'm not looking through the lens at the time. But he's got an eye, a very intent eye in that drawing, like he's really being led by his vision. And an eel will, they say, can wiggle over land to get to the water. They're better in water, but they will wiggle over the land to get to the water. And they have a very keen eye. So, if I want to say, sentiment that goes with this card is expressing feelings at every turn. Okay, so that's the passion of the water. The fiery side of water is expression, is the expression of what you feel, the expression of your passions. Every time he goes, every turn. Okay, very intent on what his goal is. Okay, and finally we have the Knight of Stones, which is the horse. This one is pretty straightforward to me. The Knight of Stones, if we talk about an action, so knights are taking action, and remember, in the Rider-Waite, the horse looks like it's just standing still, and then with the knight on his horse, and he's not actually, but it's plodding along, and it talks about maybe taking a long time to achieve a particular goal. How it takes, it's not, things worth doing are worth doing well, and taking a long time to take the proper steps needed is going to give you a result that's worth living with. Here we have the Knight of Stones. This horse is telling us something a little bit different. It's like, even if it is repetitive or dull, a horse will continue on. Think about a workhorse. The stamina and determination, doing the same thing over and over again to the point of exhaustion. Some horses you can work a horse to the death, which is a horrible thing to think about, but it has been done. That a horse will keep doing what it needs to do, what it is told to do, what it is led to do. The stamina of a horse is incredible. So this fiery side of earth is that determination. It is the determination of taking those steps. It's not just the length of time it might take to take it, but the fact that not giving up on that whatever steps need to be taken to realize the dream. Okay, so those are pretty straightforward. I thought those were, not too difficult. It seems to work. Here we're talking about now the queens. The queens, of course, representing the emotions or feelings or spirituality. And we have the Queen of Arrows. We have the Queen of Boat, which is the queen, the watery side of air. The Queen of Bows, the watery side of fire. The Queen of Vessels, the watery side of water. And the watery side of earth, with the Queen of Stones. Okay? This swan, what do we want to think? Say the Queen of Arrows. When we talk about the Queen of Arrows, it is a queen, often, I see it in the Rider-Waite, and often it's a queen of, sort of devoid of emotion. Not that she doesn't have emotion, but she's really in control of her emotion. Her intellect, she's guided by her intellect. Well, yes, this Queen of Swords takes her feelings into account, but they're there. But her intellect is first and foremost, but we can see very much the intellect is there, the emotions are there, because the bird is in water, the swan is in water. So the emotions are there, but swans. If you've ever had an encounter with a swan, they can be pretty nasty like a goose. You know, they can run you right off. They're pretty kind of determined. But one thing I do know, you know, I don't know, have a great experience with swans other than we kind of had an interesting one when we were, a couple interesting experiences when we were visiting in England several years back, because we see swans, I think, more often there than we do here. But the swan, in studying about the swan, we learned that the swan usually mates for life. The swan is very protective, very much a family bird. But if something happens, if there's some kind of a loss, I think this is kind of meant to represent that. This bird is alone. We see her alone. She doesn't have a mate with her. She does not have her babies with her. She's alone. So it is about, she's leading with the head. She knows she has to move on, but she's going in a direction. She's looking for something. She's not going to just wallow in her sorrow or her solitude. She's going to go forward to other waters, look for other waters, move through the darkness to new waters. Okay. She's not letting her emotions limit her. She's using her emotions to guide her forward to what she needs to do. Okay. So that's sort of a very cool card for her, the Queen of Arrows. Then we have the Queen of Bows, which is the hare. And I just did a thing about the hare. A lot of reading about a hare not too long ago. The Druids thought they were, they traveled very easily between the worlds, between this world and the other world, because the very nature of how a hare will just disappear. They're so quick. You see them there, and then you don't see them. Then all at once you see them somewhere else, and how they get there, and that whole idea. That they often thought that the ancients thought that they really traveled freely between the worlds. Also that they traveled within the fairy realm. So that was really cool. So the traveling in between the two worlds, you also, speaks of getting to know your shadow side as well as your, well, I don't know what we want to call it, but your positive, your positive side. We want to look at shadow self. You want to look at some of your, why you do, you know, bad habits perhaps, or depressions or whatever you have, that you know, pretty soon we're going to be coming into the darker half of the year, when a lot of us do a lot of seeking study in our shadow self. The hare is it's the water on the fire. It's the water on the fire. There's a balance between the water and fire. It's not all passion. It's not all action. It's not all that. It is the calming and the slowing down of the water, the calming of it, the tempering of the fire a little bit with the water. Water, as the depth of water even leads you to more understanding, perhaps, of what you need to succeed. So you might have this action, this passion to succeed, but maybe you don't have, maybe you have the some ability, but you do not have the passion. This is the passion. This is a deeper understanding of what you might need to succeed. Okay, maybe intuition, maybe emotions, experiences of that kind. Okay, so the Queen of Bows and the hare is what is going to remind us of that. We get into the Queen of Vessels, the watery side of water, and this is sort of a sad one to me, because a salmon, everybody knows, I think it's the first thing you learn when you're a child, how a salmon will swim upstream miles and miles and miles, hundreds of miles, to get to the place that they were born to spawn. It's a tremendous journey. It's a horrible journey, and it's a very tiring, exhausting journey. And most of the salmon who take that journey do die, and they die soon after laying their eggs, spawning. So there's the idea of self-sacrifice, sacrificing yourself the watery side of water, so caught up in the emotion of it, so caught up in that, the caring, so caught up in it, that there's like a drowning. There's a drowning. There can be. We have to guard against that drowning. Okay? But at the same time, it speaks very highly of intuition. How does the salmon even know to do that? It's amazing that the salmon, they do it. They all do it. You know, at whatever cost, they do it. So it's the idea of trusting your intuition, because, you know, it's just part of their deal, part of the deal. And we've spoken before about the Queen of Stones, the bear. We have spoken about that, and the fact that that is the earthy side. I mean the watery side of Earth, and it talks about power. The bear being a figure that is powerful, a symbol of power and protection. It's very attractive to, usually very generous. Think about, you know, when you think about a bear, I always laugh, but I think about Winnie the Pooh. Like a lot of us in my age group think about Winnie the Pooh, who was a really big deal to us when we were younger, and even before that, older than that. The idea of a bear being a comfort, you know, teddy bears being a comfort. And we think about the stories of Winnie the Pooh, and how Winnie the Pooh was so, you know, so generous with his friends and kind to his friends, and the only thing he ever really showed too much greed about was his honey, was the honey. But, you know, it was positive. It was a very positive, steady kind of a thing. We think of a bear being a really good mother, a bear, you know, being a really good mother. But then we also know that if we're ever out and about and we see baby bears, baby cubs, to run like hell, because the mother bear is going to be behind somewhere, and we don't want to mess with those cubs. They're most dangerous when she's protecting the cubs. So she's powerfully dangerous, and when she is thinking her cubs are in danger. In that sense, we can say the watery side of Earth could be too much. When emotion is too much emotion, can be a bad thing. Too much emotion can keep you from keep you from manifesting what it is she wants to manifest. Okay? She gets sidetracked by the emotion. Okay, and one last. This is going a little slow, so I apologize. Again, I think it's the heat that's sort of melting my brain a little bit. But anyway, we have the kings now, and the kings, remember, the kings is all about actually accomplishing the ability, seeing things through to the end, actually accomplishing what we were setting out to do. Okay, boy, I hope I'm putting these in the right place. And that'd be terrible if you couldn't see it. Okay, we have the king of arrows, which is the earthy side of air. We have the king of bows, which is the earthy side of fire. We have the king of vessels, the earthy side of water, and king of stones, the earthy side of earth. Okay, starting with the kingfisher. The kingfisher is pretty cool. The kingfisher, it's at home both in the air and the water, and continually flies above the water here, looking down at fish below the water, and will dive down really quickly. They're amazing to watch if you've ever gotten a chance to see one. And catching the fish below. And they're very intent. They're very intent. The mastery over their thought, their ability to focus in on what it is that they want, they are a master of, okay? A lot of self-discipline to be able to focus in on that. Okay, also it talks about, in order to be in flight over the water, you got to cut yourself of what must weigh you down in order to be up there. And because of this connection between the land and the water that the kingfisher represented, historically it represented wisdom to the ancients. Okay, knowing what it is that they were after, knowing what to go after, and being able to get it. Venturing down underwater to get what it was that they needed to survive, okay? So that was really a much admired trait And so that card, you know, pretty good understanding there. The King of Bows, okay, mastery over your passions, mastery in whatever your creative endeavor that you're trying to accomplish. This is the adder, and the adder, we see a bunch of pile of snakes here, but actually this writhing and weaving with each other and twining, kind of a little dance that is being done here. From the ground, they entwine themselves, and sometimes you even see them entwined up like a tree or up a pole or something like that, or just up in the air, just freestanding. It's an action of dominance. Sometimes it's a mating ritual, but most often it's just it's an action of dominance. And with the males trying to struggle for who's better. Okay, there's a very great feeling here with symbolism of them representing magical power or balance of some kind, or healing. And so when we think of the King of Bows, the mastery over a passion or something, it is that contest, if you will, of the dominance of, you know, the earth, the snake usually is, you know, just wiggling along the earth, rising up in that power dance that they do. Which is that's a very magical thing to see if you can watch it, if you like snakes. I can imagine. So this mastery of this, whatever it is, the mastery of the dominance of the male is representative of the mastery of passions that we have as well. So that's sort of pretty connected. The King of Vessels, here represented by the heron, is really pretty straightforward, I think, to me at least. We see that bird, you know, standing there. It'll stand there for hours, it seems, patiently peering down into that water below. It doesn't really move much. It's just standing there watching. In the Celtic world, they thought of the Herod as something that was maybe standing at the gateway between life and death, sometimes a mediator on the soul's journey to the other world. It was always standing alone. They thought it to be psychic. They thought it represented a psychic ability. It was gifted with perception and reflection. We can see it there reflecting, it's looking at itself in the water, and also seeing through the water to the fish below that it will catch. So that's pretty cool. Mastery over the emotions to get to what it is that we wish to create. Right? Mastery of that, taking that creativity and using it towards the goal. Don't let it control us, but controlling it. Okay. Gaining control of your feelings and accepting them without allowing to get the better of you. That's pretty cool. That's really the message here in this card. But there's also a caution. Being too caught up in controlling the emotions can make you appear too rigid. So that's kind of a thinking about the heron standing there for all day. It's sort of giving you that thought about being too rigid. So there's a guard against that. Okay. And finally we have the King of Stones, which is the wolf. The earthy side of Earth. The cool thing about the Earth is, and this is a good picture that shows it, the Earth is very at home in the dark. The wolf is also very at home in the winter, the cold of winter. It was seen as a guardian for the dead on their journey through the night to the other world. Okay. It was secure. And being a wolf, being a dog, we can see, what do we think of when we think of a dog? We think of loyalty, so a lot of loyalty. So being loyal as a feature of mastery over what it is we have, created whatever you have created, you manifested, like whether it be a home, you build a really good home, or you build a big family, or you have built a really successful career, whatever it is, loyalty that, and not worrying about the conditions, whatever the conditions, harsh winter, dark of night, whatever, having a loyalty to that and standing by that to get you through whatever it is you need to see through, guarding your people, your rest of your people around you, co-workers, family members, whatever, through maybe some dark times. That's the earthy side of Earth. But sometimes the earthy side of Earth can be solitary. Sometimes we've talked about that in the past in other cards. If you're too grounded in one thing and you're not letting yourself express yourself with emotions, not letting yourself grow in creativity, not letting yourself put too much time in thinking about things, just standing there and being loyal to it and protecting it is not, that's not a well-rounded experience. So you can understand the danger in that card very readily. I think so. Okay, how did this experience go for us? I didn't mean it to be too long. I'm a little, like I said, I was a little off my game here a little bit, not looking at the camera. But also, I like to see the cards actually in use in a reading. I think that's a really important thing to do. We're going to do maybe a couple more of these with look at some of my other decks. I have a few other decks that we have already identified that the court cards might be troublesome. If that's the case, I'm going to look at that and see if we can help those using the same kind of a system. But then I would really like to get into looking at reading the court cards in actual small spreads, at least, so we can see what how those energies play off of the other cards in the deck, not just standing alone as a court card, because after all, that's why we're here, right? Okay, well, I hope this wasn't confusing to you, and again, I hope if it was too confusing to you, you need to go back and listen to the video, my first video on this system that we were using, which is just the last tarot video that I put up. Okay? And I don't know about you, but I'm very happy to see the Wildwood tarot again. I'm gonna enjoy working with it this month. Okay, that's all. Thank you very much for watching. As always, I am Rebecca, really, and I send you blessings.